Okay, I think we are live now. Welcome. We will now start with the last project presentation, which is about the information platform. Jürgen Tulsrup, you already gave us a brief introduction before, and please go ahead and take it from here. I think still people are dropping in, but I think we can start.
Okay, thank you, Joop. Do you see my presentation now?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So we talked a little bit earlier about the background for the GRP theme and the project. So now the idea is to talk more about how did we then do it, our approach to solving these things that we set out to do, and I will show some of the main results we made. So our approach was, as I said before, it's very much about supporting the rest of the GeoERA, the rest of the geoscientific projects. So we actually made a specific organization to take care of this. I won't go into detail with this figure, but it shows that in the blue we have what we are focusing on in the information platform project, and in the orange colors these are the geoscientific GeoERA projects. They will be doing the geological scientific work, and we did in the IP project develop the systems and supported them. And then in between we had some kind of gray zone where we worked together, and we had a specific work package in our project to deal with this, to liaise with the other projects, and they also had each of them a specific work package to integrate with us. So that meant that we had really a lot of exchange with them and very direct communication. We also had a very, very large number of specific meetings on this, and this was to ensure our main purpose, as I said, to support what they were doing. Another thing which maybe was on our initiative, we should really focus on these FAIR principles I mentioned before. This is because we want the results of GeoERA to be useful not only to ourselves in the project and the scientists in the project, but also scientists outside our own community, and also technically integrate with other platforms, infrastructures, and so on. Yeah, as I said, make it as useful as possible for everyone. The FAIR principles are very well described. There are 15 principles altogether, and there are some guidelines explaining how to achieve them, and we've been looking very closely into them. Very, very strong focus has been on metadata. So metadata are about telling what the background for the data are, the quality, how are they updated, who are doing it, and what are they showing. It could sound a little bit boring, but metadata is actually just as important as the data itself. The data itself are useless without the metadata. We also had a lot of focus on helping the projects standardize and harmonize their data. We are working in our community in information science about setting up standards, and we try to help the projects use these standards and convert their data into them. Then there are also some technical standards that it was very important to live up to, so that all the products could be accessible to other people, not just to our own platform, but also through their GIS projects and other infrastructures. So the third thing was that we wanted to build on the existing EDGI. This was because it was there and it did a lot of things already that was very useful for GeoERA, but we also knew that we had to extend it. Because we did that, we were able to really start off very quickly and help the projects from actually more or less day one. That meant that after a few months into GeoERA, all projects had already their first maps online. This was very nice to see that that we could then already by then start discussing about content and how to display things. It's also nice to know that EDGI was very easy to extend, so the new functionality that was required from the other projects was relatively easy to implement, because it's the way the EDGI is built, that makes it quite easy. One thing that we decided was that we wanted to store almost everything centrally. This is not obvious that it should be like that, but this was a decision we took early on in the project, and this was addressing the requirement I mentioned very early in the previous presentation, that we wanted to make sure that everything is also accessible after GeoERA, and we believe this is the best way to do that, to store things centrally. So we have one place where we need to look after all these results. We don't need to rely on 14, 15 different organizations, different principles and so on to store and make things available. So we believe this will ensure that things are there also in the long run. We also are convinced that this gives a more stable operation, that we only need to take care of very few systems to make things accessible. So we did have to do some new developments, as I said, and some of the important ones I mentioned here. We developed a new document repository. We already were able to handle maps and things like that before, but documents like images, reports, small databases and so on, that's something new. We have developed a completely new general free text search system, which looks across all information in EDGI and gives users results from maps, documents and so on. We have been working with project vocabularies. This is semantic web technology where you can register scientific topics, and also developed a keyword thesaurus with where we had translated a very large number of terms into different languages, so they're searchable in people's own language. We have developed a completely new 3D database and viewer, and then a module for loading data by the users themselves. So we have in the central database more than 500 layers and all these more than 1,000 documents. We have viewers showing very specifically what the different projects have been working on, but also an overall GeoERA map. We have worked a lot on user support and the metadata, as I said before, has really been extended with more than 400 new records. I will come back to many of these things briefly after this, but we also measured the fairness, and I'll come back to that also. We've also been working on licenses, so that people who use the data know what restrictions there might be on them. We've actually managed to convince almost all projects to have a very open approach to this, so that so-called Creative Commons license has been applied to almost everything, meaning that people can use the data, they can download it, but they can also, they only need to cite where it comes from. And then we have made in our website a single point of access to all the results. I will now show a little bit examples of these new developments and other results. So this general search system I mentioned, where you look across the different kinds of information that we have here. We just ask for what do we have about boreholes, and we get access to some databases and some maps. You can also restrict your search geographically or according to topics. This is a very, very powerful tool. This is the project vocabularies, an example from the height project, where they have classified or described scientifically a lot of scientific topics, and in this case, it's this is an example where you have a fault system which is connected to a more overall fault system, and also contains more detailed descriptions of the smaller faults. This is also a very powerful tool, and we can connect these descriptions to features on maps, to concepts in reports, to layers in 3D database, and so on. As I mentioned, we have developed a viewer, actually two different viewers, to show these 3D models. You can go in, click on and click off the different layers. You can rotate, and you can make virtual boreholes, also a very powerful tool. We have put a lot of effort on this cross-thematic thinking. So we have actually produced one map where we have combined all these more than 500 layers. They are accessible, so you can go in and combine whatever you want. This is just an example to show the overall structural elements of the European continent in the lines, and at the same time combining something completely different, the favorability map of graphite in Europe. So you can combine that with the structural elements. You can also do many other things. So you can combine what is from the geo-energy theme with things from the groundwater theme, for instance, if you want to analyze something about competing uses of the subsurface. So I would like to talk a little bit more about this fairness evaluation. It's as I said, fairness is really something which there's a lot of focus on at the European level. It's some very useful principles. We did some analysis of the metadata. You can also analyze the data themselves, but here we looked at the metadata and evaluated a little more than half of the data sets that we have. We have encouraged, let's say, or forced all the data producers of GeoERA to register metadata records in our metadata catalog, and then we looked at to what degree they actually were fair. If so, the F1 columns on the left, so that's whether they are findable, having IDs so that you can find them. The A's are they are accessible in the right formats and so on. And as you can see, most of these criteria are actually met to a high degree. This is a very good achievement, I think. Of course, it can be improved further, and also if you look at the data itself, you can you probably would not get the same high scores, but because the data is not as harmonized. But this is a process that we'll be working on in the future also. I also said that we have put a lot of effort into helping the users. So we have a whole system of support hub where you can find not only guidelines on how to upload things and put things on the GIS, but also webinars and other things that has been done, really explaining how to do these things in practical terms. So this is a very valuable, you can say, a resource also for the future. We did also, as you probably can hear, there is really a lot of results here, and it can be difficult to find your way around it. But we have the specific GIP project page on the GeoERA website where we have made access to all these different kinds of products and resources. So it should be hopefully easy to find. Looking a little bit ahead, now we had the GRP project. As you have heard, we are now focusing on the Geological Service for Europe. We just handed in this application for coordination support action to reach to that Geological Service, and in that one, EDGI is again chosen as the platform to be further developed and to support this Geological Service and under the CSA. Again, we will have to focus very much on supporting the research that's going on in this CSA, but we will also be focusing very much on connecting EDGI even more than it is today to other IT infrastructures, and altogether on living up to the concepts and principles of the EU digital policies, thereby making the results from the geological community even more useful for everybody, not just ourselves in the Geological Service. Thank you for your attention. If there are questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them, but this was what I wanted to present right now.
Okay. Thank you, Jürgen. Thank you very much for this information about this very important and interesting project inside the GeoERA. I think I'll hand over now to Renate, who will inform us about the next parts of the program.
Thank you, Job. So just to inform the audience, I hope you can hear me okay. Just to inform you that we'll now have a 10-minute break. We're running a bit behind schedule, but a break is important. So we should reconvene in the main stage. So back to the hub, main stage tab on the left menu at around 11:52, so 10 minutes from now. So hope to see you there. And I see there is a quick question for Jürgen as well, if you would like to address it in a minute before we wrap up. Thank you.
Is there a question? I'm not sure I see a question.
Sorry, I can address it to you. So there is a question if EDGI is connected to Inspire.
Yes, you cannot say that EDGI in itself is connected. Connection to Inspire is something that is on a national basis, but we are very much working on using the same standards as are required for Inspire. So these are some of the standards I talked about before that we try to encourage the different GeoERA projects to use, and many of them are using them. That will help them to make their data Inspire compliant, so that they can provide them to Inspire in the right forms. We are not directly providing pan-European data, so the EDGI is about making pan-European versions of the national data. We are not delivering specific pan-European data sets to be part of, you could say, Inspire in the same way as national data are. That is something that may come in the future, but we are certainly connecting in the way that we are using the same standards as Inspire uses.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. So now we will have to wrap the session up. If there are any questions remaining, of course, we will direct them to all of the project leads that you've seen before, and Jürgen. So again, I invite the audience to go for a short break and reconvene at around 11:55 in the main stage. Thank you very much, Jürgen.
Thank you.